Okay, it says that we're live. Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Foreman from Committee of 70. Welcome to the fourth of our six Studio C70 student candidate interviews today. We're excited to welcome Judge Daniel McCaffrey, Democratic nominee for Pennsylvania Supreme Court for this session. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ellie Sammons and the students at Northeast High School who are going to be conducting today's interview.
Good afternoon. We're all a bit nervous here, including myself. It's quite an honor to have you speak with us today.
No worries. Don't be nervous. I see some people in suits and ties in the background. I'm impressed already.
Well, that's just our uniform here at Northeast. I'm going to just go right ahead and turn it on over to our students who have prepared some questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. We'll start with Ashley, go ahead.
So first of all, good afternoon. I hope all is good. And I kind of wanted to get straight to the point and ask you, what is your reason for wanting to become a state judge, and why do you think you're qualified to become one?
Well, I guess I'll go over the qualifications first, Ashley, if you don't mind, just so everybody and you guys kind of hear it from me. For those of you who don't know anything about how our courts are structured, if you'd like, I can give you kind of a brief overview, and then it can kind of segue into my experience a little bit. The courts in Pennsylvania are set up in kind of like a three-part process. There's each county has their trial courts. They're called the Court of Common Pleas. That's where everybody tries their case. The judges in each county who are elected have to decide basically how to make sure everybody gets a fair and impartial hearing on their merits of the case. They're called the Court of Common Pleas judge. Pennsylvania has an appellate system where each of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, their cases go on appeal. Those cases go to either the Commonwealth Court or the Superior Court, and that's where I currently sit right now, the Pennsylvania Superior Court. The Superior Court of Pennsylvania is the busiest appellate court in the United States of America. We handle roughly between 5,500 and 6,000 appeals a year. There's currently 14 of us. We have 15 by statute, which that means that each one of us handles about 1,000 cases a year, or is on a panel for 1,000 cases a year. Above that's the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's a very different animal. By that, I mean the Supreme Court handled all final questions of law, constitutional questions, and they handle public policy questions. As far as my qualifications are concerned, just so you know, I bring 32 years of combined legal and judicial experience to this particular candidacy. I was born and raised Northeast Philadelphia. My mother and father are immigrants. They came to this country from Belfast, Northern Ireland. I literally grew up almost directly across the street from your school. I am from Rawhurst, the Rawhurst section of Northeast Philadelphia. I attended Our Lady of Resurrection, or Resurrection of Our Lord, excuse me, grade school, which is at Castor and Shellmeyer. I went on to Father Judge High School. When I graduated high school in 1982, I enlisted in the United States Army. I was one of 40 soldiers worldwide to be selected to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point Prep. I attended West Point Prep before I was honorably discharged and attended Temple and Temple Law School on a veteran scholarship. When I left in 1991, when I graduated law school, I joined the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor, as an assistant district attorney. I prosecuted probably 60, 70 jury trials to verdict, a couple thousand bench trials to verdict. It was a wonderful job representing victims of crime in the city of Philadelphia. I represented abused and neglected children, women who were raped. I represented shop owners who were victimized. You name it, we ran the gamut of what we did in the office. So after 6 years, I joined a small firm in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, actually right down the street from Northeast Philadelphia. It was a small firm when I joined the firm, and about 4 lawyers, and I became a partner after 2 years. We became one of the fastest growing law firms in Pennsylvania. By the time I left, I was the chairperson of the firm's litigation department. I was on the firm's management committee. And in 2013, I was elected to the trial bench as a Court of Common Pleas judge in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. My district, when I was assigned, was a major trials division and the criminal division, which meant I had the East Division, which they call the Badlands, which is Kensington, Port Richmond, east of Broad Street, North Philadelphia, all the way to the river, from Center City up to the lower Northeast. I presided probably well over 100 jury trials, wrote a couple thousand opinions, a couple thousand bench trials. And in 2019, I was elected to the Pennsylvania Superior Court, which is where I sit now. As far as why I believe I'm the best candidate for this race, I'm the only candidate in this race who's ever been a Pennsylvania prosecutor. I'm the only candidate in this race who actually has a significant amount of civil litigation experience having started my own firm and building one of the fastest growing law firms in Pennsylvania. I have extensive trial experience as a trial judge, and I'm the only candidate running for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is our highest appellate court in the state, who has any appellate experience. I've been on the appeals court for 4 years now. I've written over 600 opinions, participated in well over 1,000 different decisions since I've been on the Superior Court. I am highly recommended by the Pennsylvania Bar Association for this particular position. And I was also appointed by the Supreme Court to serve on what's called the Court of Judicial Discipline. That means I'm one of the 9 judges who handled all disciplinary matters brought against other judges in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So I think by my experience and my kind of background, I'm most qualified for this particular spot. I bring a very different perspective than most judges and lawyers. I bring a very blue collar kind of approach to the job. I come from a middle class background, as as most of your students are, I'm sure. And my experience and my values and my and what I stand for is basically the reasons why I'm running for the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, if I start going on too long, just cut me off. I have a tendency to drown on. So
Good afternoon. My name is Collins. Pleasure to meet you.
Colin.
What is your view on the role of empathy in judicial decision making?
Well, when you say empathy, you have to be a little bit more clear. When we talk about empathy, obviously judges have to follow the rule of law. Trial judges, your responsibility is to basically apply the facts as you find them to be, or as the jury finds them to be, to the law. Empathy really comes into fact, Colin, when you're talking about issues like sentencing, when you're talking about not findings of guilt or findings of innocence or finding for one side or the other. Judges and juries have to make those credibility calls. For the most part, when you're talking about trial courts, as a trial court judge, you charge the jury, which are the finder of fact. They're the ones who determine the facts of the case. You charge them that empathy and sympathy for one party or another really should never factor into their decision. Once you make that determination, you then kind of get yourself into a situation where you apply the law evenly and across the board so that both sides have a full and fair opportunity to present their case and to present their defense. So empathy really doesn't factor in to the actual process itself until you get to the area of, I think empathy kind of comes into it. I mean, speaking for myself, after somebody's been found guilty by a jury, empathy kind of comes in because at that point you want to listen to people. You have to take their background into consideration when you sentence anybody. Empathy should always kind of be an overriding factor at the appellate court level because you want to make sure that the law is fairly and evenly applied to people across the board and that everybody's voice is heard in the courtroom and everybody feels that they're part of the process. And by empathy, if you're talking about just being kind and treating everybody who comes into your courtroom with respect, that's always been the kind of hallmark of my career. I have a little plaque that I put on my bench right next to my name that says, "Be kind." And that is not just something that I'm directing the attorneys to do, but it's something as a reminder to myself to be kind to people. Because one of the things I found over 32 years of being in a courtroom is that if you give everybody the opportunity to be heard and you let them make sure that they feel like they're part of the process, I think regardless of the decision, people come away feeling pretty good about our process and feeling pretty good about the case itself and how it went down. Because I think it's important for people to feel heard and feel respected in the courtroom.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Layla. Nice to meet you. My question is, what's your plan to help the courts crack down on gun violence?
Well, judges, you have to understand, judges don't crack down on anything. That's kind of a legislative initiative. The judge's job is, again, to be fair and impartial to both sides, both the prosecution and the defendant. When you're talking about gun crime. So judges really don't pass initiatives. Judges do create programs within the court system to deal with those. In Philadelphia, for instance, we used to have what's called a gun court. Gun court was one judge or two judges that handled all gun cases brought by the district attorney's office in the city of Philadelphia or all gun crimes. The reason we had a gun court in Philadelphia was because of the high prevalence of gun crimes, gun arrests, shootings in the city of Philadelphia. So we wanted to make sure that those particular cases got the attention that they needed, and they didn't slip through the cracks. But a judge's job is never to kind of crack down on anything. A judge's job is to be fair and impartial across the board to everybody who comes into the courtroom. That's usually the district attorney's responsibility. to, as you put it, crack down on gun violence. But again, that's not a judicial kind of issue.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Oliver. It's a pleasure to be talking to you right now.
Yeah.
So we know that abortion is a very prevalent topic right now being discussed across America. And I would like to know, like, what are your views on abortion in the state of Pennsylvania in the legal sense?
Well, Pennsylvania, just so you know, Oliver, Pennsylvania is a different animal. And by that, I mean this. Everybody seems to conflate the federal system with the state systems. When people talk about the Constitution, for instance, there's not just one Constitution. There's actually 51 constitutions. Each state has their own Constitution. I think what we're looking at right now, especially at the national level, since you brought up abortion, is people understand when you start talking about polls, you're starting to see a lot of people question the legitimacy of the United States Supreme Court because of some of the most recent decisions. The abortion issue is probably the prime example of that. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we had 3 vacancies in our Supreme Court that President Trump got to appoint Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and then he got to appoint Amy Coney Barrett. A lot of the confidence in our system goes back, I believe, to that kind of those hearings on their nomination process. Because if you recall, each one of those individuals was wonderfully qualified by experience and by education to serve on the United States Supreme Court. But when each one of those individuals was asked about issues like abortion, like Roe versus Wade, like LGBTQ equality cases, like affirmative action cases, they all gave the same answer, if you remember. And that answer was, it is the law, we will follow the law. And it was the law right up until the United States Supreme Court had a challenge to Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs decision, and they reversed Roe versus Wade. Women's reproductive rights is no longer an issue or protected under the United States federal Constitution. They then, within the next 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, stripped back affirmative action. They walked back LGBTQ equality cases. Now, for the first time in American history, you can discriminate against the same-sex couple if you don't like their lifestyle based upon a claimed First Amendment issue. Pennsylvania is different. Each one of those cases, which we call as judges, substantive due process cases, are now getting thrown back into the state courts. And Oliver, you actually kind of hit on the reason why I'm running for the Supreme Court. Those issues are now going to have to be decided by our state courts. And in Pennsylvania, we elect judges, which means judges are going to have to determine those cases for themselves at the constitutional level under our under our state constitution. Pennsylvania also has something called the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act, which means that abortion is legal up until 24 weeks for everybody, for anybody who chooses to have an abortion. If you recall, post-Dobbs, as soon as the Dobbs decision was rendered by the United States Supreme Court, at the time, the Pennsylvania legislature, which at that point was had a majority of Republicans elected as state representatives, tried to enact a constitutional amendment to prohibit reproductive rights, abortion rights in Pennsylvania. That effort was defeated because the House of Representatives flipped to Democrats, and Joanna McClinton's now the Speaker of the House. Governor Shapiro said he would veto any legislation to that effect. So right now, the law in Pennsylvania is that women's reproductive rights are guaranteed through 24 weeks. But a lot of people ask that question because they want to know why the Republicans would try to repeal that or make a constitutional amendment in the event that they're going to try to repeal that particular law over the next several years if they're able to retake the House of Representatives. I have made clear, I believe that the Dobbs decision was wrongly decided. I believe women's reproductive rights are something that are best left between a woman, her doctor, and her conscience. And I think that under our constitutional provision, under rights of privacy, I think those issues are covered by our Constitution as a constitutional protection.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, it's nice to meet you. My name is Wilbur Kilgore. As a candidate for the Supreme Court, what do you aim to accomplish for the citizens in Pennsylvania?
Justice, fairness, pretty simple. I mean, that's what a Supreme Court justice is all about. You want somebody who shares your kind of life experiences, someone who shares your values, and someone who's qualified by experience. Obviously, I'm qualified by experience. The Pennsylvania bar has already highly recommended me. But I've said before, and I say it again, I bring a very different perspective to this bench than most people who run for the Supreme Court. I bring a very middle-class, blue-collar background. As I said, my mom and dad are Irish immigrants. I don't come from money. I don't come from country club background. My dad actually worked as a caddy at a country club. That's not my background. I bring a very blue collar, pragmatic approach. My mom and dad came to this country to make a better life for us and to make a better life for their children and to practice, their religion freely. I believe in freedoms. I believe our Constitution should be limited and make sure that people's protections or rights are protected under the Constitution and are not scaled back. I think judges, your job is to be concise, to be clear, and most of all, be consistent. And I think that's what's lacking right now in our courts.
Ready, thank you.
Hi, my name's Emily. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Emily.
Hi. My question is, in your opinion, what do you think is the greatest issue in Philadelphia?
In my opinion,
In your opinion, yeah.
probably crime. I mean,
Why do you-
I was a prosecutor from 1991 through 1997. I was born in the city. I was born in the Germantown section of our city, right around Shelton and Chew. We moved up to Rawlhurst section, right across from Northeast High School. That's where I was raised. The only time I've ever lived outside the city is the time I spent serving my country in the United States Army. When I look at the prevalence of crime over the last probably 10 years, I think crime is really having a disproportionate effect on the quality of life in Philadelphia. There are certain neighborhoods in Philadelphia where I've got a lot of friends, I've got a lot of family. People are frankly afraid to go outside because of the gun violence that's creeping into the cities. I think that's having a disproportionate effect on poor and minority communities in our city of Philadelphia. I think we need to do a better job of making sure that we have resources devoted to crime prevention efforts in the city of Philadelphia, because I think once we stabilize communities, it provides a more stable environment for everybody else to kind of live in and thrive in those neighborhoods. So my answer to that would probably be crime.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more.
Hi, sir.
Might want to come a little closer to you. Thank you. There you go. Yep.
Good evening, sir.
There you are. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good.
I read, and as you stated, that you've done military service, and I'd like to know why you decided to pursue law instead of continuing your military service.
It's a good question, actually. I joined the Army at 18. As I mentioned beforehand, I grew up in the neighborhood. We didn't know, when I was growing up, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know any doctors. Nobody in my neighborhood was a doctor or a lawyer. Most of my friends, families, and their parents were police officers, a lot of municipal workers, firefighters, a lot of people in the construction trades, things of that nature. So, I didn't have a whole lot of people in my family with college degrees and college background. So when I graduated from high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I joined the United States Army. I served. I loved being a soldier. But when you're a 21-year-old young man or young kid, I still didn't really understand what I wanted to do. I tell people this all the time when people look at me and say, "My God, how did you leave West Point?" I kind of laugh because I was 21. When you go to West Point, back at West Point, you're doing 4 years at the United States Military Academy, and then you have a 5-year commitment after that. As a 21-year-old kid, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I didn't think I wanted to make a career of the military. So I decided to give college a chance. When I first got out of college, believe it or not, the first thing I did was take the police officer's test to become a police officer, because frankly, that's all I knew. My older brother was a police officer. Like I said, a lot of my friends and family parents were police, firefighters, municipal workers. I took the police test and I enrolled in college on a veteran scholarship. I got my notice to come to the police academy at the same time. I got notified that I got into law school. So my decision to go to law school was really one because my older brother, who was a police officer at the time, was going to night school. He went to night school at LaSalle. He went to law school at night at Temple. And he had been exposed to lawyers through his job as a police officer. And he's 15 years older than me. And he was talking to me about it. And he said, why don't you think about going to law school? You might like it. I started looking into law school. I decided to give it a shot, give it a try. Went to law school. I've really enjoyed law school. And then, like I said, when I got into the DA's office, that was kind of a job that fit me like a glove. And I really enjoyed it. And from there, my kind of career kind of just took off. It's something that once I got into it, I really enjoyed it. But it's not something I ever pre-planned. I mean, you ever meet kids in high school that I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor? When I graduated high school, I played football, ran track, ran base, played baseball at Father Judge. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. So I kind of joined the Army to give myself something to do for a couple of years, and then just kind of fell into the law. And once I, got into law school, it's like I said to you, it's something that I really enjoyed. And from there, just took off.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody have any questions? Well, that is all the questions we've prepared for you today. Thank you for being so personable with us and our young voters and potential voters. I just want to give you the opportunity to say some last words to everyone as we say goodbye.
No, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your interest in this. It's important. I can see you guys by your questions, and I can see your interest that it's important for you as well. You guys asked some very, very topical questions about the city of Philadelphia. Stay involved is what I can tell everybody. If I can help anybody out there with anything, please just look me up. I'm easy to find. My offices are right here in Philadelphia. If I can help you out, if you have any questions, I lecture at Temple undergraduate, Temple Law School. I've lectured at Duquesne. So I joke around. I loved working with kids. Myself, when I got out in law school, I picked up rugby because I played football in college. I played this sport called rugby for 20 years until I was 40. And then I actually started coaching a high school rugby team at Father Judge. So I've coached rugby for the area for quite some time. And like I said, I'm a Northeast Philadelphia guy, born and raised, love the Northeast. If I can help you guys out in any respects, in any manners, please feel free to look me up, give me a call, or have your teacher give me a call and look me up. And I'll be happy to do whatever I can do for you or answer any questions you have. But thanks for your interest, and make sure you spread the word to everybody. It's important. I was in church yesterday. I'll just leave you with this. I went over to Enon Baptist yesterday on Cheltenham Avenue, and Pastor Waller was preaching, and he was talking about the importance of participating in the electoral process. And what he mentioned is that in communities that don't vote, there seems to be a lack of political will. Politicians and people who elected office really respond to people who vote, people who are active in their communities. So the more active you are, the more responsive you're going to find your government to be. So it's a good lesson for everybody to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
You.
You too.
You too. Bye.
Don't need it. All right. So thank you both again. Great questions. Thank you everyone for participating. Just a couple reminders before we end the stream here. Election Day is November 7th. It's coming up. Make sure to visit 70.org to use your ballot tools and stay informed, and tune into our upcoming sessions. Our next one is in 30 minutes. So thank you again, everyone, for watching, and have a great day.